So, good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. I am Alisa May Lasco together with my groupmates Christian Aguilar and Atasha Lasco. So, the topic that we will be discussed for today is the historical antecedents in which social considerations change the course of science and technology. So, without further ado, let's proceed to the discussion. Everyone's life revolves around food because food provides us with energy and nutrients which aid in our development and our growth. It is one of our needs to continue life and to survive life. So, since food is one of the most important things you need to survive, do you also wonder how the early humans knew what to eat and what to avoid? Do you, do you also ask your aunts and uncles or your grandparents how the ancient people knew if that food was poisonous or not? Kasi ako, oo. Palagi kong tinatanong yung mga lola at lolo ko kung paano nalalaman ng mga sinaunang tao yung kung ano yung mga sa nakakain o hindi. And pare-pareho lang sila ng sinasagot na trial and error lang daw yon, na kapag daw namatay yung kumain, syempre, iiwasan nila yon. Pero pag hindi, syempre, yun na yung idadagdag nila sa pwede nilang kainin. And mostly, ang ina-observe nila is mga hayop. For them to be able to survive, tinitignan nila yung bawat kinakain ng hayop. Inoobserbahan nila, tapos tatandaan nila yon para maipasa or ma-inform nila sa angkan nila. Para mapasa sa through generations and generations. And hindi naman sila na-disappoint kasi yung knowledge na yon is nadagdagan ng nadagdagan at nabago. Tulad ngayon, ang dami ng mga creative ways to eat meat. Like, dati 'di ba, iniihaw lang nila yun sa apoy kasi hindi naman uso yun yung mga ngayon kasi ginagawa na nilang pwede na siyang gawing burger, nakakita din siya sa samji, pwede din siyang gawing steak, maraming creative ways to cook meat. Kasi 'di ba ang boring naman pag iisang luto lang. And let's proceed naman po sa next topic, which is sa clothing naman po. The first known humans to make clothing is the Neanderthal man, and they survived from about 200,000 BCE and about 30,000 BCE. During this time, the Earth's temperature rose and fell dramatically, creating a series of ice ages throughout the northern areas of Europe and Asia, where the Neanderthal man lived. So, yun nga, malamig yung temperature that time. And they thought of something para malabanan yung winter na yun. Since malamig nga, syempre, need nila ng bagay na makakapag-cover sa katawan nila. Kaya naisip nila ang pagdadamit. They need to cover at least 80% of their body for them to be able to survive harsh winters. And hindi lang naman sa winter nila ginamit yung pagdadamit. Syempre, also to protect their private parts. And the next topic will be discussed by the next reporter, which is Miss Atasha Lasco.
So, good evening, sir. Good evening, classmates. I'm Atasha Marie Lasco, and now we will be talking about how do humans survive and still exist on Earth while other living things are now extinct. So, for our basic info muna, maraming mass extinction yung nangyari sa Earth long time ago. Actually, there are five. There are five mass extinction. Hindi ko na i-elaborate lahat kasi during this period naman wala pang human being. So dito nga sa 5 mass extinction, nangyari ngang naubos yung marine organisms, tropical marine species, dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs, and including many vertebrates. Yung non-avian dinosaurs, sila yung mga dinosaurs na walang pakpak. Commonly, ang cause ng extinction is nung period na yon is climate change, geologic catastrophes like numerous volcanic eruptions, and even meteor strikes. Scientists lately discovered that Earth is currently undergoing six mass extinction. Team of biologists from University of Hawaii believe we're in the midst of six mass extinction. And this time, they point out that tayong tao yung rason bakit nangyayari to. Yung population ng wild animals natin have declined by more than two-thirds since 1970, while yung human population has more than doubled. So, ang naapektuhan na naman dito is yung animals, and now, ang cause ay tayong tao dahil sa mga human activities. Ang dami ng endangered species ngayon, di ba? So, bakit nga ba sa dinami-dami ng extinction na nagaganap, bakit capable pa din tayo na makasurvive while other living things ay extinct na? So, first in the line is humans are very, very intelligent. Our knowledge enables us to do things that most species cannot, such as farming, raising livestock, and more, allowing us to survive and mamuhay sa Earth. Nabubuhay tayo because we are able to think how to survive, unlike living things, wala silang unlike other living things, wala silang ability to process idea and make decisions. Specifically animals, they can do what we can do to survive. Next, next one is we are uniquely adaptive. We share information, we generate and pass on knowledge. That's why we have the ability na mag-adjust to new situations. Hanggang ngayon ba gumagamit pa rin tayo ng mga sinaunang tools para mag-hunt ng food natin? No na kasi because no na kasi sa pagdaan ng panahon, mas lumalawak yung capacity of thinking ng tao, kaya may mga bago na ring pamamaraan para makasurvive. Parang today's period, hindi na yung tao yung nag-a-adapt sa environment, but yung environment na yung nag-a-adapt because na-maximize na natin yung ultimate adaptation. Last is that we are very fast to reproduce. Humans are like animals, nabubuhay at namamatay. If hindi tayo magpaparami, ma-extinct talaga tayo. Pero sobrang bilis nating magparami, sobrang lumulobo yung population natin dito pa lang sa Pilipinas, di ba? Biruin nyo guys, 7.9 billion yung tao sa mundo at mas nadadagdagan pa araw-araw. So sa tingin nyo, ma-extinct pa tayo? May possibilities pa din, lalo na when a large meteor or asteroid will strike to Earth. Edi sabog talaga yung Earth nun. Talagang merong possibilities pa din na ma-extinct tayo like other species. Pero sa tingin ko, makakapag-generate pa tayo ng mas advanced na pamamaraan para makasurvive kahit pa mangyari ngang may tumamang asteroid sa Earth. Sobrang advanced na kasi talaga ng technology natin, kaya kaya na nating makapag-predict kung may tatamang ang asteroid sa Earth. Biruin mo, mabibigyan tayo ng decade of time before an asteroid strike. Humans could probably stockpile enough food to survive years of cold and darkness. So, sa tingin ko, maaari pa tayong makasurvive kung meron mang tatamang asteroid. So, that's for my report po. The next topic will be discussed by Christian Aguilar.
So, good evening, everyone. I am Christian Joseph Seglar, and I am here to discuss about how did the early humans or the humans learn how to use tools or how how to use tools in how to use tools for hunting. So, let's dive to the discussion. Let me present the slide po. So, how did humans learn to use tools for hunting? So, para masagot na. So, before we answer that, so syempre, before sa how, kailangan din natin alamin na where did the first tools came from, what were they made of, and how did humans discover to use tools or how did they use them from the very beginning? Paano nila nalalaman na tool yun na pwedeng gamitin? Or paano nga ba talaga? Saan nga ba nagsimula? So so malalaman natin yan through our African descendants. So uh, the first ever or the not first ever, maybe the recorded one or not recorded, but discovered from the African continent, there were some tools excavated from there that were called all the known tools. So the theory or yung kwento kung or paano ginamit ng mga unang ninuno natin or our ancestors the human tools is like this. In ancient Africa, there were many watering holes. Yung mga watering holes is yun yung mga parang small bodies of water where usually animals go there and drink. So one day a homonyms are what you call the early primates of that time, the predecessors of the Homo erectus, which so the Homo erectus, which is our close ancestors, their predecessors, the homonyms, there back then. One day, isang homonym na naglalakad by the watering hole, uh, let's say na it saw a carcass or yung bangkay ng isang prehistoric antelope. So, back then, the hominids were just scavengers. They're not hunters. They scavenge food for meat. So, nakita siya ng isang bangkay. Then, upon checking it, syempre, it's an opportunity to make a living or dahil nandun na rin naman yun, so kukunin niya yung meat. But, as closer inspection, he saw that there was almost no meat. Then, he saw the upper part where the mouth is located. Doon niya nakita na meron pang tongue, which is the meaty part. So, to get that meaty part, uh, tumingin siya sa paligid niya, then he saw a rock, then he picked up that rock and smashed it through the skull, therefore opening the meaty part of it. So, to further discuss that, let's watch a video. So, this is the video.
Thanks to CuriosityStream for supporting PBS Digital Studios. About 2.5 million years ago, in the Middle Awash Valley of Ethiopia, one of our ancient human ancestors, or maybe a group of them, crouched over a carcass of an antelope on the shore of a lake. One of these hominins took a sharp stone flake and sliced into the flesh on the inside of the jaw, grazing the bone and leaving 3 cut marks. These ancestors were after the meaty tongue of the animal, and in trying to remove it, they left traces of this remarkable moment, the use of a tool by a human ancestor. They also left behind the technology itself in the form of a few scattered stone tools. This site, now known as Bori, is one of the earliest confirmed locations where a human ancestor or relative permanently modified some part of the environment around them to suit their needs, chipping raw stone into a tool. In the broadest sense, this is what technology is, making tools and using them to interact with the world around you. These simple stone flakes and the cores of rock they were struck from are what anthropologists call Oldowan tools, named for the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania where they were found. And while these tools don't seem like much when you're comparing them to the screen you're watching right now, their creation represents a pivotal moment in the origin of technology and in the evolution of our lineage. This is when our ancestors first started to make the world around them fit their needs. But what they didn't know at the time was that this use of technology would change them too. Because the fact is, the use of tools has not only enabled our lineage to take over the world, it has also shaped our very biology, from our brains to our skeletons. Of course, hominins didn't invent the use of tools. The first of our ancestors to make and use technologies like the Oldowan tools were just expanding on the behavior of our primate ancestors and cousins. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, and capuchin monkeys, a much more distant branch on our family tree, make and use tools to get at choice foods like termites and nuts. But hominins, the branch of our family tree that's more closely related to us than to chimps and bonobos, took things a step further. They created permanent tools out of carefully chosen materials that were then sometimes carried around and reused. And the Oldowan instruments weren't the first tools that hominins ever made. In 2011, anthropologists working in West Turkana, Kenya found evidence of a different type of stone tool that predates the Oldowan by around 700,000 years. These tools are even simpler than Oldowan choppers and flakes. They're called Lomekwian tools after the site of Lomekwi where they were found, and they're dated to 3.3 million years ago. They also seem to have been made in a different way. Oldowan tools were made by hominins holding rocks in both hands and striking them together. But Lomekwian tools seem to have been made by holding only one rock and striking it against another that was sitting on a flat base or against the flat base itself to break it and create a sharp edge. And it seems likely that the tool makers of Lomekwi were doing this for the same reasons that hominins at Bori were, to try to get hidden foods like bone marrow or the insides of hard-shelled nuts. But we don't know for sure because unlike at Bori, the Lomekwi hominins didn't leave behind butchered bones. Still, in both cases, these tools allowed our early ancestors to get at more nutritious foods more often, and this might have kickstarted a feedback loop that affected our bodies forever, starting with our brains. We don't know for sure who the tool makers at Lomekwi and Bori were, but they were most likely Australopithecines, members of that early and diverse group of hominins found mostly in eastern and southern Africa. And members of this genus typically had smaller brains and smaller bodies than hominins that followed them, the early members of our genus Homo, who appeared on the scene in eastern Africa around 2.4 million years ago. These early members of our genus probably used Oldowan tools too, like the hominins at Bori, and the ancestors that used these tools seem to do pretty well for themselves. For example, the earliest known site with clear evidence of long-term and consistent meat eating is an Oldowan site called Kangera South in Kenya, dated to about 2 million years ago. Over a period of hundreds to thousands of years, the hominins there acquired and butchered many small ungulates like gazelles and occasionally larger antelope. And all that meat and marrow is really high in calories compared to things like fruit and tubers. So regular access to all those calories might have paved the way for our large brains and in turn further technological innovation. Now, the next phase in the history of our tool use is where things get even more interesting and more complicated, because this is where we start to find tools outside of Africa, but we're not sure who made them. The traditional story from this point in the anthropological record is that a little less than 2 million years ago, we see both a new hominin and a new, more complicated type of tool emerge. This is when Homo erectus makes its first appearance in Africa about 1.9 million years ago. And this species had a larger brain, larger body, and smaller teeth compared to earlier hominins, all hallmarks of a higher quality diet. Brains are especially expensive when it comes to how many calories they require to develop and to maintain, and so are larger, more muscular bodies. So it was thought that this might explain why a new, more sophisticated toolkit started to appear regularly around 1.7 million years ago. These were large cutting tools, including things like hand axes, which are made by flaking hand-sized rocks to a point on both sides with a rounded end for gripping. These newer, more complex instruments became known as the Acheulean toolkit. And until very recently, those tools were thought to have been first made by African members of Homo erectus, and this development was seen as the next pivotal step in our ancestors' use of tools. But new finds from China might make this story much more complicated. In 2018, researchers published their discovery of Acheulean tools from the site of Shangqin, which were dated to 2.1 million years old. That date pushes back the appearance of Acheulean technology by some 400,000 years. And it's also 300,000 years before the time when the earliest hominins were thought to have made it out of Africa. The earliest known fossils of human ancestors that we've found outside of Africa belong to a population of Homo erectus, found at a site called Damani Sea in the Republic of Georgia, dated to 1.8 million years ago. But who made the tools found in China is still unknown. The general consensus is that it was probably Homo erectus, because fossils of Homo erectus have been found at another site in China that are 1.7 million years old, so we know they made it there at some point. But other researchers have suggested that maybe it was an earlier member of the genus Homo that made the tools, like maybe Homo habilis. It'll take more research to figure out what exactly is going on here, but that's part of what makes paleoanthropology so interesting. New discoveries are made all the time. And all of these technological innovations, from the very simplest to the more complex stone tools, were major breakthroughs for our lineage. For our Australopithecine ancestors, the use of tools meant that they could incorporate more animal resources, like meat and bone marrow, into their diets, consuming more calories than they'd been able to before. And more calories meant more available energy, allowing those early hominins to develop and maintain larger brains and bodies over time, leading to taxa like Homo erectus. And the very circuitry of our brains might have also started to change when we began making and using tools. In 2008, researchers at a medical school in Indiana used PET scans to study the brains of modern experts.
So to sum up po that video, so to summarize that video, based from the video itself, from the story, yung one of our ancestors, the hominins, hindi niya practically na um, learn. Hindi niya it's not practically learned, but it's instinct homos in the homos genes or the species that they would incorporate what was in their surroundings, like kung paano niya nakita yung bato and ginamit niya yun para makuha yung meaty parts. So the tools there were the older one tools, which were used by the African homos, and the Lemurian tools, which was later discovered in outside of Africa. So all the one tools were made by stacking two by holding two rocks and stacking them together. So it's the more primitive way of making tools. While the Lumeclian tools, ito yung mas parang mas advanced yung paggawa nila. Kumbaga parang pinapanday nila. Dahil sa estilo ng paggawa nito is it's either isang bato lang ang hawak, then yung isa is nakalay sa isang flat surface wherein you struck it like forging. So parang pinapanday siya. Then evolution came up, and then come the Homo erectus. So the Homo erectus came with larger body, larger skulls, which means larger brain. So the meaning of that larger brain means more complex or more use of the brain. So they came up with these physical attributes because of their high protein, high calorie diet. So sa nga, so high calorie, high protein diet, which is because of their diet mostly on hunting meat. So meat is essential for them because meat gives us energy. So more energy means more energy to do work, more energy to think. Doon nga pumapasok yung kasabihan na pag walang laman yung tiyan mo, hindi ka makakapag-isip na maayos. Because a full stomach will help your brain think better. So that's the reason why Homo erectus mas parang sila yung mas parang mas ginamit nila or parang mas in-incorporate nila sa buhay nila in yung the use of tools in hunting and other means. So the dawn of technology by 2.6 million years ago, early humans in East Africa used hammerstones to strike stone cores and produce sharp flakes. So ito yung sinasabi kanina. It's either two ways yan. It's either the all do no one tools, which you hold two rocks and strike it together, or yung Lumeclian tools na mas advanced ng konti. Kasi ang estilo na pagpo-forge nila is like forging na, like papanday na talaga. Wherein naka siya sa flat surface. So ginamit ng mga early humans yung mga tools na yun for almost 2 million years. So they use it to cut, pound, crush, and access new foods, including meat from large animals. So examples of this are, for instance, in this picture we can see wooden spears. So wooden spears gawa yan syempre, so mas abundant yung mga wood doon. They incorporated it, naging sila, resourceful. They use what was in their surroundings. So this was either two sides were pointed, sharp yung dalawa, or yung isang side lang yung pointed, then yung isa is yung handle. This was used to hunt large animals. Why large animals? Because large animals were risky. It may either injure you or it may cause you death. So, bakit nga ba large animals yung tinatarget nila? Kasi ang large animals is composed of more meat. Ibig sabihin, more meat, more na may makakain sila. More energy. Kasi more energy nga means you can think and you can do more. A lot of work. So, another example naman ng ginagamit nilang tools noon for hunting is this. This to a sharpened rock. Kumbaga, ito na yung nagano, ito na yung resulta ng pagfi-flick or paghampas ng dalawang bato para maging ginagawa nila yun para mapa-point or mapatilos yung isang point ng stone or rock. So ito ay ina-attach sa isang spear para maging stone spear or wooden spear. Kasi nga, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, ang spear ay pwedeng sharp ang dalawang dulo or may yung isa ay hindi, then yung isa is yung pointed dun or either yung pointed niya is yung bato. Diyan i-attach nila doon. So this was used to catch faster and fast and dangerous prey. So yung mga animals noon hindi lang naman sila just big but also they are fast and dangerous. So to catch fast and dangerous prey, they use this. Kasi pag bato ang stone yung spear na ginamit mo is babaon yan sa bato. So making the animal injured, therefore rendering it immovable, then you can catch it. Then here is an evidence of the use of that kind of tool. As you can see, yung butong yan is galing from a prehistoric horse. Ito yung shoulder bone ng isang prehistoric horse. There you can see a semicircular wound. Yung butas. Yan ay gawa ng isang spear. Is either most probably gawa yan ng isang spear na may pointed stone sa dulo na nakatouch. Kasi bumaon siya. So yung animal na yan is nahuli nila because bumaon yung spear na and hindi na siguro nakatakbo yun. So, lastly, benefits and cost of eating meat. So, kaya nag-hunt yung mga ancestors natin noon through the use of tools kasi sobrang laki ng benefits and also to mitigate the cost or the risk. Benefits of this is meat is a high concentrated source of calories, protein, and fat and nutrients. Katulad nga ng sinasabi ko kanina, source of calories, protein, fat, and nutrients, ibig sabihin nun, mas marami kang energy pag kumakain ka ng maraming meat. Maraming energy, madami kang magagawa, and nag-stimulate yung utak natin, mas nakakapag-think. And another benefits is, unlike plants, yung meat noon is wala pa mga preservatives or toxins. So, ito yung mas relatively safe food para sa mga early humans noon. Kasi yun, walang preservatives yung mga hayop na hinahunt nila. Unlike the plants there, ang chance mo doon is 50-50. Halimbawa, may nakita kang plant at early prehistoric years, para malaman mo lang na edible yun, is either try it. So, you have a 50% chance na it is edible or a 50% chance that it is not. It may poison you and may cause you death. And lastly, meat is more quickly digested than plants. So hindi mas madali siyang ma-dissolve ng tiyan ng mga early humans na. So saving them a lot of energy for the brain and other organs. Now, there are costs or risks. So yung mga risks na to is hunting or scavenging large animals is risky and less predictable than gathering plants. Totoo yun. Dahil ang mga large animal noon, for example, yung African elephant na largest elephant ngayon, yung ancestor niya noong time na mga early humans is triple or double the size. So imagine, yun ang inahunt mo, bare hands, you have no chance against it. So you need to use tools to mitigate the risk of you having injured or probably being dead. Another is, at that time, hindi pa top of the food chain ng mga early humans. Because marami pa rin predators na sobrang lalaki, sobrang bibilis, and they are more dangerous. And also, they predated on early humans. So, to lessen that risk or to eliminate that risk, the use of tools were not just only for hunting but also to protect them. The use of this, they can repel or they may even kill the dangerous animals that predate them. Therefore, when they kill when they kill the animals that predate them, oh, so may extra meat. So there's another source of food. So that's all for how did the humans learn to use tools in hunting. Hope you enjoy po the presentation. Thank you.